Our son returned to the kitchen and said, "Dad, I've been thinking about what you said, and you're right. I've really screwed up, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going back to college for my master's." "And I've even solved the car problem," said our son. "I'll move back home and borrow yours." It wasn't fair. I'd already said goodbye to the Grateful Dead and Chicago. Goodbye to empty milk cartons and dried out lunch meat. I said so long forever to porch lights that burned all day and night for 3 years, and to mildewed towels and empty ice cube trays. I'm too tired for my old profession, mothering. You have to be in condition to do that, like an athlete. I no longer care that my dish towels look like the seat of a mechanic's pants, or that my cookie sheet was born the same year as Alan Alda. No longer can I leap into the air in glorious exhilaration when my laundry smells fresh, or glide my hands across a bathtub that doesn't feel gritty. There was a time when I knew exactly when a kid was going to split and get out of taking out the garbage. They move too fast for me now. Face it, the body's gone. Legs that used to run trays up to the bedroom 18 times a day for a common cold have more ridges than corduroy. The form that used to drag out every morning and feed everyone now burrows under the cover like a lump and whimpers. I'm not ready to open up the kitchen again for 3 a day and a matinee on Saturdays. With just the two of us, the kitchen became a place where we went for a drink of water. To some, a $20,000 drinking fountain might be considered excessive, but we earned it. We dine out now. I wait until the waiter is near the table and drop the name of Mikhail Baryshnikov because I like to pronounce it. My husband sniffs a wine cork and blesses it. We talk about El Salvador. I don't know how long it will last, but right now it's fun being phonies. It has nothing to do with loving my children. I also have affection for Miss Piggy, but I don't want to turn her underwear right side out before I have to launder them. It's not fair. The kids come home when they're out of work, out of money, out of socks, out of food, and in debt. They're never here when they're in love, in the bucks, in transit, in school, and their cars are running. Well, it's going to be different this time. There will have to be rules. Anything that dies in the room must be buried before the sun sets on it. In the event of missing towels, glassware, food, and silverware, a parent has the right to search and seizure. Parents have the right to break down the door when it is too quiet. Boxes and luggage used for the return from an apartment, trip, marriage, will be left in the garage for 30 days of deroaching before being allowed in the house. No stereo system will be permitted on the premises without headphones. Parents are not only allowed to accept payment for their room, but also will insist upon it. People left in the room longer than 60 days must have a forwarding address. I honestly don't think it's going to work. Even on short visits, we fall short. Our kids say we support the wrong causes on our bumper stickers. We do not take the world seriously enough. We watch mindless television, and our friends perpetuate foreign imports. We dress too young, we think too old. We eat too fast, we drive too slow. Our car is too big. Our closets are too small. Oh God, our closets. There go our closets. I'll have to revert again to hiding everything of value or having them sift through my things like a discount house on Saturday night. Oh, I used to be giving, loving, and sharing. But that was before I realized a woman who is giving, loving, and sharing ends up with a drawer full of dirty pantyhose, a broken stereo, and a wet toothbrush every morning. Also, a camera with sand in it, a blouse that died from acute perspiration, a library book with a bent back, a sleeping bag with a broken zipper, a tennis racket with a cracked frame, and a transistor that just went dead when it hit the pavement. I'm a mother. Somewhere it is written that when children have something to spit out, we extend our hands. On the same tablet, it is recorded that sheets that have to be washed in the middle of the night are women's work. It came with the territory. But where does it say I have to loan my car to my kids? My car is a clean car. A clean car is a happy car. It isn't used to life in the fast lane. It's never been to a rock concert in the middle of a cornfield or a dirt bike race along some dusty road. It hasn't been out past midnight since I owned it, and it exudes innocence. It's a lady. My son borrowed it once, a night I am not likely to forget. I was awake when the car spun into the driveway with music so loud my teeth cramped, and I had only to look at it the next morning to see the mud on her grill and the seatbelt flapping beneath the door to know that my car had been violated. She had that used and empty look about her. Her motor had been raced. She'd blown a speaker. All the push buttons on the radio had been repunched to rock stations. There was a piece of cold pizza in her ashtray. Her antenna was high enough to clear the Rockies. There was a tennis ball lodged under her accelerator. She looked like she hadn't cooled off in a week. Her gas gauge was on E. That has always been one of the mysteries of life. How kids can run a tank of gas right down to the last thimbleful. It's a gift, really. The car will roll into the driveway, gasp, thrust forward, die, and the gas gauge will drop like a stone to E. One time, I even took one of the kids in the car with me and said, "Do you know where your mother is taking you? We're going to a place where you have never been before." "Will there be kids there my own age?" he asked. "Not many, but mingle and make friends." As we pulled in front of the pumps, he said, "What is this place?" "It's a gas station. You take a nozzle from the pump, put it into the gas tank, and the fuel converts to energy and makes the car run." "Are you serious?" he asked. "Surely," I said, "you have had some curiosity as to why they put out signs on these that say, 'Last stop until freeway.'" "I thought they were restrooms," he said. All over America, whenever teenagers gather, the subject comes up, "Where were you and what were you doing when you found out about a gas pump?" Excuse me, there is a bitrate thing that needs my attention that I'm not very happy with, so hold on. Let me see if I can do something about that. Talk amongst yourselves. Let's see if that helps. I hate it when it does that. I always understood when I had bitrate problems when I did live music because I was trying to run so much, but right now I'm literally only... Anyway, I hope that helped. Okay, good. Well, maybe. Huh. Anyway, sorry about that, everybody. Let's continue. Not entirely sure what that's all about. There we go. All right. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, I think that worked. Good. I hate latency. Drives me crazy. All right, anyway. I looked out the window as the prodigal son poked under the hood of his car. He, too, would have some adjusting. He would return home as a man and be treated as a child once more. His independence would be compromised by, "Where are you going?" and "What time are you getting home?" I remembered when he was a toddler. We had gone to the grocery store and, ignoring my threats, he had reached up and pulled over a bubblegum machine that broke and sent colored balls of gum all over the store. He was terrified, and I lashed out at him angrily. "That does it, Buster! You will never see another Oreo cookie for as long as you live." Tears welled up in his eyes as he desperately searched the faces in the crowd for some sign of compassion. Finally, he threw his arms around my knees for comfort. I, who a moment ago had rejected him. Why me? I was all he had. And he knew beneath the anger the love was there. "Hey, look who's up," said one of the boys. "Our sister. What's the matter? Did your mattress catch fire?" "Where's the coffee?" "If you want a Danish, they're history." "I do not want a Danish. I do not eat breakfast," she said tiredly. "Remember what Mom used to tell you? There was a buzzard following you all the way to the bus stop." "Please, what kind of disgusting cereal is that?" "Fiber brand nuggets. It's caffeine-free, no sugar, no preservatives, and makes its own gravy. Box tops will earn you premiums on African violets and a whoopee cushion for your hemorrhoids." "God, you're gross," said his sister. "It looks like Dad is still putting all the old stale cereal into one box like no one notices." Remember the time he combined chock full of pimples with puffed crunchies and cavity flakes? The milk turned purple. Oh, and remember the cereal embargo? No cereal was to be brought into the house until every cereal on the shelf was eaten. And there was an outbreak of cereal incest, and we ended up with 8 boxes more than we started. Where are Mom and Dad? Asked our daughter, jogging. But the car is gone. You don't think they walked to the jogging path? Are they a pair to draw to, or what? Frankly, said his son, I think we're too old to sit for a Christmas card picture. So what's wrong with that? Besides, Mom and Dad like having us home. Makes them feel young and needed again. Did you see her last night? She poured half a glass of milk and told me not to spill it. The woman still does not trust me. Why should she? Said his brother. Your whole life's been a lie, beginning with the time you stuffed all your papers down the sewer so you wouldn't be late for a little league game. You should talk, he charged. You were supposed to bring Mom to school when you were caught belching Ave Maria during Mass, and you told the school she was out of town. Hey, what could I do? He retaliated. I was thinking of becoming a priest, and I didn't want it on my record. If they only knew half the things we did when we were kids, they wouldn't have permitted us to grow up, said his sister. They weren't perfect either, said our son. Mom used to put us outside to play when the chill factory was 70 degrees below zero. She said, get a little fresh air, it's good for you. And I know for a fact she gave us tranquilizers on our vacation and told us they were vitamins. No wonder when I crayoned I couldn't keep within the lines. Yeah, but you got all the young parents, said the baby of the group. Since you guys screwed up, she came down hard on me so they wouldn't make the same mistake and get the same results. Like, how old did she tell you she was before she was allowed to drive a car? The oldest child said, she told me she was 21. The middle child said, she told me 24. The baby said, she wanted me to vulcanize my feet. Are we talking about the same mom, the thin, bright-eyed, dark-haired girl who used to read me stories, bake cookies, paste my baby pictures in the album, and giggle a lot? The middle child said, the somber-looking bleached blonde who used to put me to bed at 6:30 and bought me a dog to save on napkins? The baby said, the grayish lady who falls asleep during the 6 o'clock news and is going to show me my baby pictures when she takes the rest of the role at my wedding? That's another thing. They go to bed right after the 10 o'clock news. Do you suppose they're all right? Their social life is somewhere to the right of a sedated parakeet. You know Dad, he hates surprises. They were going out one night, and I heard him ask Mom, am I going to have a good time? Who is going to be there? Will I stay awake? What time are we coming home? We were sitting there the other night watching television and the phone rang, and do you know what he said? He said, who could it be at this hour? It was 8:30. They thought about it a while before one spoke. Did you ever wonder why Mom got married? That's easy. She needed a personal slave. Someone to answer the phone, get her sweater, find her glasses, and move the garden hose every 5 minutes. I thought it was to have someone to eat the leftovers that the dog wouldn't touch. I always thought she was doing research and was going to establish the first New York sock exchange. Oh, Lord, the wash and spin Bermuda Triangle. I hadn't thought about that in years. She was rather crazed in the utility room. I thought for a while she was losing it. Queen of the static cling. I can see her now on her hands and knees, rummaging around the dryer and mumbling, if a pair of socks went in, then a pair of socks must come out. Remember Dad? He came home once with a dozen pairs of new socks, tore them apart, and threw out one sock from each pair to save her the trouble of losing them. I asked her where my other sock went once, and she said it went to live with Jesus. Parents have an answer for everything. Yeah, every time Mom said, I'm doing this because I love you, I knew it was going to be something rotten. Where do they get those phrases? You mean like, this is going to hurt me worse than it does you? You know what I think, said the older son? I think there's a book of them that the hospital passes out on the day they take the baby home from the hospital. Wise sayings for parents. I remember Mom telling me, when you grow up, you'll thank me for being so strict. Ha! I'm grown up, and I'm still ticked off about it. Or how about when Dad says, son, I may not always understand you, but I'm willing to listen. He says that just before he says, I don't want to hear anymore. Go to your room. And if there's anyone in this room who can spread world-class guilt like Mom with that one little phrase, all three of them chanted in unison, never mind, I'll do it myself. God, I hated that. said a son. I could be watching the last 5 minutes of a Super Bowl game with the score even and my team is kicking a field goal. And Mom says, can you get this lid off the pickles for me? And 1/2 second later, she goes, never mind, I'll do it myself. Is that the time she used a meat cleaver and a rolling pin to open it and her hand required 6 stitches? Jesus, that woman can make Joan of Arc, St. Teresa, and 1,000 women suffering in labor look like terrorists. Hey, aren't we coming down a little hard on them? Asked her sister. I mean, can you honestly sit there and say you have no regrets about some of the things you've pulled off? Here it comes. The old killing my goldfish by dropping it behind the dresser and saying nothing while Mom paid $50 for the exterminator because something smelled bad story. It's pretty good for starters, she said. How about the time you left the gas grill on all night on the back porch and we didn't have a back porch the next morning? I thought surely they would put me in an institution for that trick, said the youngest. I think Mom aged 15 years the time you jumped off the roof with her dish towel around your neck saying you were Superman. Get a load of Snow White, said one of the boys. I seem to remember our sister requiring stitches on her lip from kissing a boy with braces and telling Mom she fell into the locker. Both of them have a scary quality for knowing what you do when they don't see it, or hearing what you mean when you don't say it. You know, said a son, you spend a lifetime trying to please them, and just when you think they're what you want, and just when you think you're what they want you to be, they'll pull the string and nearly choke you to death. But all in all, they're okay. Speaking of being asphyxiated, did I tell you I'm moving back home? Said our son. That ought to make Mom's Christmas. Knowing her, she's ecstatic, said our daughter. She's the original Earth Mother. I think both of them were pretty knocked out. Neither one of them could speak. It's not such a bad idea. They need someone to keep an eye on them. Have you noticed it takes 2 of them to finish a sentence anymore? That's nothing new. Mom's always been a little flaky. Remember when we were growing up? There were only 3 of us, and she could never remember which one she was talking to. She'd go through all the names before she stumbled on the right one. Yeah, said a son. I once wore my PJs wrong side out, and she called me Dr. Denton for a week. She used to say to me, how long do I have to call you before you answer? And I'd say, until you get it right. Then, when she got the name right, she couldn't remember what she called me for. I read somewhere that every day after the age of 35 you lose 100,000 brain cells. What's that supposed to mean? It means every day of their lives the pilot light gets a little dimmer, the elevator goes to fewer floors, and it takes longer for the pot to boil. God, that's heavy. After a while, it will take 2 of them to work a parking meter. They'll probably call one of us up. They'll probably call one of us up to come over and set the FM station on their car radio. We may even find them passed out one day on the kitchen floor from an overdose of bran. It's sort of sad. They used to be such vibrant, active people. Hey, it happens. You're born, you live, and one day the wavy line on the terminal by your bed gets a hum on it and fades to black. There was a long silence. Finally, our daughter said, look at it this way. Mom and Dad have led long, productive lives. Yeah, her brother added, and someday we'll be in our 40s. I threw my body in the $45 hot pink warm-up suit against a tree to stretch the hamstrings that were supported by $80 jogging shoes. Taking the $12 orange headband, I wiped the designer sweat off my face and groaned. A breathless husband joined me. How did you beat me back? He panted. I didn't see you on the path. The last time I passed you were tying your shoe. It was a trick he never caught on to. Every day for 4 months, I started out with him on the jogging path, ran 50 yards, and stopped to retie my shoe. Then I just dawdled and talked. It made all the difference in my life. When people discovered I ran, they began to tell me how healthy I looked and how much weight I had lost. Perfect strangers would come up to me and ask if I was going to run a 10K Sunday. Besides, it did a lot for my hormonal balance to hear heavy breathing behind me. You can't buy that kind of excitement over the counter. I sat on the ground and watched my husband perform the cool-down ritual. I thought maybe the kids would join us in the morning, he said. Are you crazy? Our daughter thinks cellulite is a battery, and the closest your sons ever got to an accelerated heartbeat is when you told them they had to take the bus to school instead of the car. Come on, he said. You act like they're a bunch of couch potatoes. They were always into athletics in high school, remember? How could I ever forget those athletic banquets where I sat there hearing about sons I had never known before? Who were these enigmas who were comatose at home and came to life on a school campus? I sat there stunned one night as the coach put his arm around our son's neck and announced to a crowd, "This boy is probably one of the best sprinters I've ever had in my entire career at South High. Hang on to your hats, folks. He set a school record this year by running the 100-yard dash in 9.9. Everyone clapped and rose to their feet. 9.9! I figured it had to be 9 days and 9 hours. I once asked him to run the garbage out to the can, and it sat by the sink until it turned into a bookend. And in a testimonial to another son, a coach said, I don't know what this baseball team would have done without this boy's hustle. We've had chatterers on the team before who could get the boys whipped up, but this one is a world-class chatterer. There isn't a moment when he isn't saying something to spark the team when they're down." Our son smiled boyishly, hung his head. Chatterer? From a kid who only spoke 6 words to me a week. When you going to the store? I must have sat through a dozen of these banquets listening to coaches present a courtesy award to our kid who displayed sportsmanship and manners on the tennis court. By pure coincidence, it was the same boy who broke his brother's face the day before for stealing a record album from his room. I was numbed by the announcement that one of our children threw a ball weighing 8 pounds a distance of 100 feet. He couldn't throw a 6-ounce Saturday edition of the newspaper from his bike to a porch on his paper route. Have you forgotten how your son got an award for picking up wet towels and suits for an entire swim team and couldn't pick up his own feet at home? I asked. You know how kids are, he said. They're 2 personalities, one for home and one for show. We're blessed. You and I share the same interests, the same values, the same respect for one another, and that's why we're such a good team. We work well together, and we play well together, even when we play Trivial Pursuit. Give me a break. You show me a woman who plays Trivial Pursuit with her husband, and I'll show you a woman in a singles bar. My husband had a smirk on his face from the minute he threw the dice and read the question, how many stars are in Orion's belt? The entire family huddled over the Trivial Pursuit board, snickered, and nudged one another. She doesn't know that, said my father. Give me the dice. How do you know I don't know that? I snapped. Mom, said my son. Anyone who doesn't know what candy bar is made in Hershey, Pennsylvania, cannot possibly know how many stars are in Orion's belt. You didn't say that to your grandmother when she asked... You didn't say that to your grandmother when you asked her what the biggest gland in the body was. I knew it was the liver, said Mother. She guessed, I charged. She did not, said Dad. She just remembered her brother. That's a pretty crummy thing to say, said Grandma. Give Mom a break, said my daughter. Science and literature questions are hard. She couldn't even remember that Barbara Billingsley was the Beeves' mother, said a son. Why should she remember that? Asked my dad. Because they both wear a girdle when they clean the house, said my husband. Time's up, said my son. My God, I said. I have raised a child who would turn me into the Nazis if I had a radio in World War II. Do you know the answer or not? She'd know how many stars in Joan Collins' belt, said my husband. The dice moved on. Was it my imagination, or was I developing a nun wish? Sometimes my husband could be the kindest man in the world. Other times, he made me feel like I was lobotomized by domesticity. I'll never forget him on the trip to Spain a few years back. We were sitting there on the beach like Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. He was fishing. I was needle-pointing. When we heard someone crawling over the rocks, we both turned. A bather, totally nude, was making her way toward the water. For a full 5 minutes, my husband and I turned into statues of salt. She walked toward the water, searching the shoreline for rocks. At one point, my husband cleared his throat, and I thought he was going to say something, but he didn't. Finally, she entered the water and swam out to a rock about 50 feet away and stretched out to catch some rays. My husband turned to me and said, "Did you see that? She wasn't wearing shoes. She could have cut her feet to ribbons on those rocks." You really are certifiable, aren't you? Here's a tramp who invades our space, and the only thing you see are her tender feet. How do you know she's a tramp? He asked. She looks like she has a nice personality. She has the intelligence of a food processor. You don't know that either, he snapped. When you leave an ankle bracelet on in salt water, you're not too bright. Well, she obviously comes from a good family, possibly military. How can you possibly arrive at a revelation like that? Her posture, he said, it's superb. I cannot believe how naive you are. Would you want your son to marry someone with the tattoo of a duck on her hip? It was not a duck. It was a family crest of some kind. Right. And Prince Charles has 2 lions tattooed on his bicep. Why are you so stubborn about this Woodstock dropout? And why are you so vindictive and judgmental about a person you haven't seen fully clothed? Frankly, I'd like to see her in the family. She comes into this family and I go out, I said, jamming my needlepoint in the bag. Is that an ultimatum? You bet your sweet bird it is. I hope you and your Dr. Ruth out there will be very happy. At this point, a male nude bather, wearing only a wedding ring, jumped into the water and joined our nymph friend on the rock. Now he's slime, said my husband. I don't know, I said. He strikes me as someone who would be very nice to his mother. My attention came back to the game in progress. My dad was admonishing my mother for remembering that Miss America played Nola on her nose to win the talent competition in 1953, but never remembering to put starch in his shirts. My husband accused his son of remembering that Wilt Chamberlain made 23,924 rebounds in his career, but never remembering to put oil in the car. My daughter said if her brother didn't take his turn so she could make a phone call, she was going to rearrange his face. And Mother was in a trance, trying to remember who played the part of Melanie's baby in Gone with the Wind. I realized a family has no allies. There are no pacts based on honor or loyalty between any of its members. Your confidant could sing like a canary. Your loyal booster could abandon you and turn into an adversary. The man who held your hand tenderly through 16 hours of labor with your first child could charge you $135,000 for landing on Park Place without a trace of remorse. Well, all I know, I smiled, is running has given me energy I never knew I had before. Even when I hit the wall, I know I can keep going. And what wall is that? I asked. You know that imaginary point when your legs feel like lead, your heart is ready to burst, your throat is dry, your mind no longer is capable of commanding your body, and all systems are running on automatic pilot? I've even had moments where I didn't even know what I was doing. You were tying your shoe, he said. Excuse me? I've watched you. When you hit the wall, about 5 minutes out, you stop and tie your shoe. He knew. What gave me away? I asked. No one runs with a handbag. So, that's about as far as I'm going to get into that book. I'm about... Gosh. About 2/3... Well, yeah. There's about 80 pages more. I've covered however many. Yeah, that's about like the first 112 pages. The next chapter is actually really stands on its own. The next chapter is amazing. I don't want to overcook the goose, but I've saved the next chapter, and I'm just going to read the one chapter. I've saved that. I can't remember which day I've saved it for, but it'll be closer to the holiday. It's just a very nice chapter, and as I say it even if I hadn't read anything else in the book, it would make complete sense to you. I really, really like it. In fact, I've decided that as of this Christmas, this holiday season, it's going to be kind of standard reading, whether I do this or otherwise. Tomorrow, I will be continuing on with The Little Prince, and I will be reading that throughout the week. And then I'll have some other stuff the following week. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'll see you tomorrow.